Hello, welcome back. Today I want to talk a little bit about the a7s3, which is coming up, and make some predictions based on realistic and not overhyped sort of specifications and what I think Sony is about to do and why. We have never seen so much movement in the mirrorless market as this week, right? So we've seen Nikon and Canon come up with their solutions. We are hearing rumors, quite strong rumors, about the next step of Fuji and Panasonic. And clearly Sony will react, but I think they will react in a quite predictable way. And yeah, let's talk about it. So let's first talk about when they will release it. The rumors are now that they might do it around IBC, which is the 14th of September in Amsterdam. So I might go there because, well, my office is in Amsterdam, and check it out if something is happening. But normally it would be weird for Sony to introduce something at IBC, although if it's a video-oriented camera, IBC is not a bad place for it. It makes more sense than Photokina or one of the photo ones. So let's see if it happens. But I want to talk mostly where I think it will be positioned, because I think there's a mistake in many people's thinking of where the S actually stands for. It stands for sensitivity, and we keep forgetting that. And I think there's a really interesting option that Sony might, in fact, by the end of this, so let's say in 2 or 3 months, have four cameras which are both good in in video and in photography. So let me try to explain what I think it will be and where it will slot in. Today I've put on, because I figured it was cool to have another lens on it. So today I've put on the 100 to 400 GM on the camera, and just a reminder for all the people who are looking with envy to the Canon zoom lens that they're about to introduce. So the 28 to 70, that is actually more heavy than this lens. So keep that in mind, right? So if you think that it's a nice walk around lens, it's a workable lens, but this one is lighter than the proposed, let's say, walk around lens. And I think also from the Canon side, is probably the most effective lens they are going to introduce is the 24 to 105 f4. I think that's going to be the preferred one to be sold and with the Canon. And I also don't think that it will be cheap, the 2.0 zoom lens. But anyway, so let me jump into the predictions. I think what Sony will do, they will keep the same body. I don't think they will change it. Maybe, and I'm hoping they will, by the way. Maybe they will change a little bit at the bottom, at the battery door and the bottom part, because there's clearly some extra weather sealing that they could do there. They are not difficult fixes, they're quite easy fixes. So they might do it in part of the production run, because it doesn't really change the physical outside. I don't think personally they will add anything to a flip screen or whatever. I don't think it will happen. I hope, but I doubt it. If within this design they can do something that Fuji has done with the T100, so the tiltable one, but that you can also flip out. So kind of a new design. That will be very cool, but I do notice that, as far as I can see, the new Fuji X-T3 also doesn't use it, which is a pity because it looked like a brilliant idea. So what will be the core of the upcoming S3? In my opinion, what they are going to do is move over the sensor which they've created for the A9, so a stacked sensor, to the S3. It might not be the same sensor, because remember the S stands for sensitivity. So I think they probably made a new sensor which has about the same number of AF points, a little bit better or a lot better, we don't know, light sensitivity, but I think the important part will be that it is a 24 megapixel stacked sensor. Why? Because there's a lot of advantages for video for that. So we already know that the A9, if you look at pure the video aspect, it probably has the best video of all the all the 3 cameras that are now out. So the a7 III, the a7R III, and the A9 is the best in some aspect of the video. I also think that it will be 24 megapixels. Why? Because I don't think it makes sense to stay in 12 megapixels, because clearly all the other 24 megapixel solutions that Sony have released in the last 3 years show that downsampling is actually gives you better results. And also it allows you for using the crop mode. So I think what we will see is a 24 megapixel stack sensor inside the a7s3. I think we will see new formats coming in, and I know that the 10 bits is very popular to talk about at the moment, but I think in many ways some of the high dynamic range log formats are more important. So I think they will go to 10 bits either internally or externally, but I think also part of the story will be the internal log formats, and there's already rumors about new formats and the HLG one, so I think yeah, that's what's also going to happen. Why is the stack sensor important for video? Because it will dramatically reduce rolling shutter. Right? One of the nice things about having a way higher refresh rate on your sensor is that you can take away one of the most annoying things about doing video, which is your rolling shutter aspect. It won't be a global shutter yet. I will be surprised if they can do that. It will be really shocking. So, but I think we are getting closer and closer. So I think they will also probably put the same screen on there as the R3, so I don't think the screen will improve. It will be better than the a7 III, but not as better than the A9 and the a7R3. But I do think they will put in a new finder. Again, that makes sense. The rumors are that they have a 5.6 megapixel finder, and that will then be the best in the business. And it also means they have quite a lot of tools doing punch in to focus. Again, a small detail, I was looking at the Canon specifications, and although there are some really nice features, they are clearly not ready for what an EVF can bring in some ways, right? So, for example, if I read the specs correctly, and I think I have, if you use it for video, you can indeed, or if you use it in the camera normally, you can indeed punch in, so zoom into the picture to do your manual focus or to check your sharpness or what is happening in the scene. But you can't do that in video mode. So there's pretty good reasons why Sony wants to have this viewfinder sharper than the one that's in the R3 and the A9, but even further they want to be able to play with all the tools that they already have, and that's a pretty good set if you're into Sony land. Now, I know this might sound boring, but if you line up all these specs, right? So a stacked sensor, 24 megapixels, this body, the battery and all the other stuff, the better viewfinder, and maybe the better screen, or at least matching the screen of the R3 and the A9, then you almost have to come to the conclusion that it might actually be a very good photo camera. So this is my prediction. I think what we will see is the following lineup. The a7 III will be the base model. I think above that, maybe even at a quite a surprising price, so let's say 2,700, 2,500 euros or dollars, whatever. So in between, a little bit lower, weirdly, than the R3. I think they might place the S3. Why? Because if you look at it, it kind of could be simply because of the video specs that we suspect. It could also be kind of an A9 camera, but with down-tuned possibilities, because they need to reuse some of the stuff for the video. But we have a 24 megapixel, probably a better dynamic range than the A9, because it's not built for the same speed that they want. But we might already have the totally a no blackout photography side, because if it's a stack sensor, the possibilities are in there, and they might limit it, let's say, to also 10 frames a second. Right? So I see a real option that above the a7 III, we will get the a7s III, let's say about 500, 600, 700 euros more. Then we will have the a7R III, the 42 megapixel one, and then the A9, and maybe later an A9R for even more megapixels. But you can see that there will be quite an interesting lineup of cameras, and all of them are pretty good in video, and of course, at least I think, pretty good photography cameras. And I think that might be something that is about to happen, that Sony will surprise people by introducing a camera that is a little bit between the a7 III and the a7R3. So 24 megapixels, but then using the stack sensor, because I think the technology is ready for it, and I think they are ready for it. For the rest, I don't think there will be many massive changes. I don't think we will see two faster SD card. I don't think we will see a body redesign, because I think one of the nice things about it that they can reuse so many parts, and they just kind of are retuning the whole lineup. So I think they will end up for this generation with 4 cameras, which are basically reusing quite a lot of parts, but have a nice sort of interaction towards each other, with the R3 and the A9 being very specific, and the a7 III and the a7s3 actually being quite generic. I think if they release the a7s3 as almost a high-end, or not a basic model anymore, but a more high-end camera, so by adding 800 euros of stuff in there, so the stack center, the better AVI, the no blackout photography, maybe at 10 frames a second, a little bit less deep buffer, I think it might actually be a very interesting camera, and it will definitely be for me, because for me, I would probably then, next to the R3, get an S3, again, not only as a video solution, but also as the first, let's say it, reasonably priced no blackout Sony camera at 24 megapixels. So that's my guess, and let's see if this makes sense in a few weeks. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.